This is Creative Motion TV with Trisha Harmon, an extension of Creative Motion magazine. With each episode, I serve up an amazing blend of Christian talent from right here in the great state of Michigan. It's kind of like the extra whipped cream on your favorite caramel macchiato, without the guilt. Get ready, sit back, and drink it all in. You're going to enjoy every drop. Thank you, Bethany, for staying afterwards so we could have this private recording. And we just want to be able to speak to women and young women who have been sexually assaulted, or you know someone who's been sexually assaulted. This is a conversation for women only, so that you are empowered and equipped and encouraged to not just get through a horrific ordeal, but to get from it. So Bethany, thank you for being willing to open up and share so transparently what you've done or what you are doing or what you need to do, and not like we have it all together or that we have all the answers, because something like this affects everybody differently, and you walk through it just like grief. You know, we all express grief in our own way, and there's not a right way and a wrong way, but there are some things that I know you can offer young women that will empower them and help them deal with this in a much more healthy way. And maybe we'll talk about some of the things that are not serving you well, that are not helping. So we'll just dive right in. And, you know, as we talked about before, you actually were encouraged by your counselor to go ahead and take this project on as a means of therapy and actually a process of helping you heal. So what was it like writing this script, and how did it begin that healing process for you?
So with writing the script, it started out literally, I was like, I knew the first scene I was going to have to write would be the story where she's telling her boyfriend like about the assault. I was like, I knew that needed to be the first scene, because I didn't really know what we were going to do with the film, like past that. I knew obviously it couldn't just be like, this is the assault story. You know, I knew there needed to be more in the film, but that's where like that's where Matt came in, the other writer, because I was like, how do we, you know, do this? And so sitting down to write the scene, I kind of kept putting it off because I was like, oh my gosh, once I read it out, like I have to relive all these moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we sat down and I was like, I allowed plenty of time to do it, because I was like, if I need to take breaks or if I need to whatever, if it's overwhelming, you know, then I can do that. And actually sitting down and writing it out didn't take as long, bless you, to just write out the story. But then it was like, okay, well, she's not just gonna literally be like, here's the whole entire story, just like blur, you know. So then trying to figure out, I had to write it down exactly, you know, like the story, and then figure out how to make it where it wasn't so just like everything. And it didn't take as long as I thought. But then after I wrote it, I like left it alone for 2 days and then went back and read it over and was like, okay, does this, you know, yes, this is a story, but does it make sense, like flowing in terms of a script? Does it make everything? And I sent it over to Matt, the co-writer, and was like, this is the story, you know, what do we do with the rest of the film? You know, like we knew we wanted it to be a story of like what happens when you find the right guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, you know, all of this trauma relationship, or this trauma in your past. And so giving it to him, and then it was after that, it was like he would give ideas and I would give ideas, and then we'd write it back and forth and send it off to each other for all the edits. And then yeah, but it was kind of, I don't think a couple of years ago I could have done it. I couldn't have written this part with my story. Like I wasn't ready to share it.
Yeah. And it was a while before, I guess, I'm assuming it was a while before you even shared it with someone else. Like how soon afterwards did it take you to actually open up with someone and share? And what led to that?
So mine happened October of senior year of high school. And it wasn't until sophomore year of college, so like 2.5 years later, my RD, so like the dorm director, she had a couple of us girls over. Like she had Saturday morning breakfasts if we wanted to go have breakfast, like in her apartment. And I think weirdly, I was the only one there this one day, which was not normal. And she had said something, we had been talking that week in chapel about like love, you know, and how much like God loves you and everything. And it just like, I was feeling so overwhelmed with like not feeling that I would be loved by someone, period. And I was really struggling with the fact that it's like, I'm not pure anymore. And that's like something I really struggled with. And I broke down and like told her, and I didn't tell her all the details, but I was just like, this happened when I was in high school. And like, it's really caused me to struggle with like feeling loved and like feeling pure. And I'm actually pretty sure it led to like, I mean, I'd always had some anxiety, but like it led to a worse like anxiety disorder was this whole situation. So yeah, it was like 2.5 years later before I told anybody.
And what was her suggestion, or what
Well, she suggested that I go talk, like she could give as much encouragement advice as like she could, but you know, she's not a trained mental health professional.
Right.
Or trained. So she actually got me in with the counseling center at college, and I would go there, and for the first, I want to say like the first 10 to 12 minutes after you do like your initial one, we didn't even talk about like the assault. We just talked about, you know, anxiety and relationships in general and everything. And then we finally, and even then we didn't go into details. The first counselor that I actually went into detail with was my one here in Michigan. And we actually,
California, right?
yeah, I'm from California. So, and so that was like, you know, I went to counselors in California, but I moved here in August of 2016, and met my counselor. And one of like the fourth or fifth session in, we actually did a thing where like she had me close my eyes and like go back to the day or the evening that it happened, and like you know, what did I see, like what did I hear, you know, like be in that moment. And that was the first time since the assault that I had actually like relived it. And it was, yeah, that was powerful.
Yeah.
But
now I just want to let our listeners and viewers know that we are coming at this from a faith-based
yes,
background. You are a Christian, and
yes.
this is in an element of having a faith in God and turning to God. What were some things that you did personally as you continued to try to heal from this? What were some things within your own faith that were
it
really
really helped that I actually went to a Christian college. So like after I talked to my RD, I had 2 more years of college left. And she recommended a lot of verses, just like reading of like, you know, how much God loves you, and a lot of just like, you know, everything. And just like, she's like, just rest in that love, you know. Eventually like I'd have to deal with that, you know, like what had actually, but she's like, just rest in that love. And
that's good.
then, so that was kind of a thing. And then I didn't really like forget about it, because obviously it's still like in my past, but I kind of was just like, okay, after college I was like, I don't want to deal with this. Like I was living in LA, and I had a small group, and one night we just like shared our testimonies. And that was like, you know, everyone's got these like cool parts of their testimonies or whatever. And for me, that was like the one time in my life that I've actually not questioned my faith, but like really struggled with it. Was after the assault, because I was like, I don't understand how God could let this happen. And now I don't understand, like I've always grown up in the church, you know, been told like sex before marriage is bad. And, you know, like you want to stay pure for your husband. And it's like, I couldn't do it. And so that was like the first time I had actually admitted it like out loud to a group of my peers and friends, that it's like, what do I, you know, like that's the time I've struggled with my faith. And being at a community college or Christian college was awesome, because you didn't really have time to struggle with it, because like your professors, it was talked about in all your classes. And it was, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I would not trade my 4 years for anything. But like living in LA, you're definitely not surrounded by faith. And so I kind of didn't really like lose my faith, but I could tell like once I was in LA for a while, and I finally just had to, there was a moment at the church I went to there that they were like, you know, you need to be all in. And it was like, I have not been all in since the assault. And so since like that night, I was like, yes, I need to be all in. I was like, I don't really know what that looks like, but I need to like continue to trust him that this is okay, and like my life is going to be okay. And then in 2015, I went on a retreat for a weekend to a lake, like a cabin near one of the lakes in California with my small group, or not really a small group, but with like my church group. And they had all gone on a hike for a day, and I don't remember why I didn't go on the hike for some reason, probably a knee injury, let's be honest. But and I just stayed at the cabin, and that day, like I actually, this is 7 years after the assault, 7.5 years after, I actually wrote a letter like to the guy and just talked about everything that I had been feeling like since then, because I really, like, at first it was just like I was too ashamed to talk about it, too scared, everything like that. And then I just felt like, and then I felt ashamed, but it's like, no, like I was actually angry that like he took this gift that I can't give to my husband now. And and I sat and I wrote out that letter, and it was probably the hardest like 3 hours of my life, writing out that letter and just thinking through everything. And then at the end, writing that I forgave the guy. And it doesn't mean like I condone at all, obviously, what he did or what happened, but like in that moment when I was like, I forgive you for what you did, like obviously I wish it hadn't happened, but and then everybody came back that night and we were having a discussion, and they're like, oh, what did you do? And I was just like, I wrote this letter, and like we burnt it that night, like after, and it was like releasing all the feelings. And that was even after going through a relationship that I thought was ending in marriage. Like,
yeah,
we were planning on getting married, and realizing that it ended for many different reasons, but like part of it is he didn't really fully understand what was going on. I wasn't at the place, honestly, looking back now, like to be getting married, because I still had a lot of issues with, and not issues with intimacy, but just like being close and like letting my guard down around a guy and everything. And
well, before you get too much further, you've said so many incredible things that are really, really important for others to take away. One is that you actually confronted the offender in your mind, in your emotions, by writing out this letter. Not that you intended on giving it to him, and that, I think that's really important, to be able to write it out and cognitively give words, give emotion to what happened, and kind of put it in an order is really, really important, because sometimes your mind is all over the place, your emotions are all over the place. So to actually sit down and articulate it is very, very powerful. But the other thing that you said is that you chose to forgive him. And I love that you said that not because he deserves it or earned it or asked for it or wanted it. It's because you knew that by you not forgiving him, he's continually holding you captive. And it's like being tied to him emotionally in this, because there is something so powerful in the very gift of forgiveness. You are giving that gift to yourself for the sake of your relationship with God. You're also releasing yourself from the continued opportunities for I call them sabotaging and negative dialogue stuck between your ears, because that will continually replay over and over and over. How many times did you find yourself in that same moment, or hear the words, or maybe somebody else said something, but it triggered those same emotions or those the words. And so I think it's so powerful that not only do you forgive them, but you give up your right to hold it against them. And that is so biblical, because we're told that we are to forgive as we have been forgiven. And how can we, who has been forgiven so great a sin, hold other people's sins against them? And Matthew 18 talks about that a lot, where the king who had a debtor owed him more than a lifetime worth of debt, and he fell on his knees and he begged for grace and mercy to forgive him. And the king did show mercy, and looking at God as that great king. But then this servant goes off and he finds somebody who owes him a day's worth of wages. And he grabs him by the neck and says, pay me what you owe. And he falls on his face and says, I beg you, have
Yeah.
mercy on me. And he doesn't. And he's ended up taken back to the king by the others who saw what was going on. And that king said, and I'm sure, you know, if you think about this before God, you wicked servant, I forgave you so great a debt, and yet you can't do that. And he threw him into he didn't just throw him into jail, but he delivered him over to the tormentors. And that word is so key, because the tormentors are the guilt, the shame, the doubt, the confusion, the insecurities. And you take that wherever you are, into the next relationship, or into your next job, or, you know, you just carry this, in what I call it, this invisible V, the valueless, vulnerable victim mentality. And so to be able to forgive somebody to that degree is so powerful. And I just want to emphasize that is the biggest, most gracious and most valuable gift you can give yourself, is by forgiving the one who offended you.
And if I can say something, like, I will, yes, that's amazing. And I will say, though, like, that doesn't mean you're not ever going to feel, you know, it's never going to affect you again, because, like, yes, you have forgiven him, but then things come up. You do meet someone that you're interested in getting into a relationship with, and you're like, not only do I have to tell them, like, you don't know how they're going to react to it, or somebody says something in a jokingly manner, and it just, like, it's still going to affect you, but it doesn't, it affects you, but it doesn't hold you prisoner.
Right.
In a sense. Like, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I can, if I meet the right person, like, I am ready to get into a relationship that could lead to marriage. And, you know, like, obviously this is something in my past, and whoever I end up marrying is going to obviously have to know about it.
Right.
But I'm okay, like, being vulnerable around that person now.
Yeah. I wrote and actually want to offer this as a resource for you. It's called The Power of Forgiveness. So if you go to trishaharmon.com/resources, there is a resource that takes you through the 5-fold principles of biblical forgiveness and what that looks like. And it's very easy to remember, because it uses each finger on your hand as a peg.
That's good.
And yeah. And so as you went ahead and, you know, you went through part of that process, one thing that I really encourage people who are really struggling with, I forgave, but it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. And so what I have found and put in this book is that when that does come back, because it will, the memories are triggered somehow, I started seeing that as an opportunity to pray for the one who offended me and blessing them, because that's what God's word says. It says, bless those who spitefully use you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my name's sake. Bless and do good. Pray for them. And so if we're not blessing, if we're not praying, and if we're not doing good, then we're going to give the enemy of our soul some more opportunities to bring us back around into that vicious circle of guilt, shame, and regret, and confusion, and doubt, and insecurities, and depression. And it actually can lead to spiritual suicide, if not physical suicide, for some people when they don't get a handle on it, or an addiction to some kind of medication, because that's what or drugs or alcohol or whatever they fill that void with. It ends up replacing the gift that you can give that other person by just thank you. And I would literally say, because I've had offenses happen to me, and when I've gone through this process, I mean, in fact, there are times where I've said, I'm not forgiving them. I don't feel like it. They haven't earned it. They don't deserve it. And then even in that anger, in that self-righteousness, my heart gets broken, and I realize it's not about me. It's about my relationship with God, and who am I? And so I can go through. But the one thing that I found was most helpful was when that started coming back around, and it's kind of like knocking on the door to see if there's any entry, I would say, he doesn't belong to me. Take him to, because I already gave him to God. And God already has this. So Satan, get behind me, and you have to go to God. And then I would say, thank you, Lord, for reminding me to pray. And I would use as a prompt rather than as an opportunity to be condemned. So I just want to encourage you, if you are struggling, or you know somebody who's struggling with not feeling or thinking that you can ever forgive the unforgivable, go to trishaharmon.com /resources and grab that book. It's going to take you through everything. There's scriptures, there's affirmations, there's prayers. And so it just will take you all the way through. So what you did, Bethany, is huge in that. Let me ask you too, are you a journaler? Did you do much writing?
I have tried to keep a journal multiple times. I am not. I occasionally, it will be like, I'll write, a prayer down or something, but when I like consistently try to keep a journal, I go maybe 3 weeks, and I don't know if it's just like, because it almost becomes more of a chore for me, and then it like is not something, I even tried to like do one, I was like, okay, well, I'm filming this other movie I did out in LA. I was like, I'll keep a journal like every day of filming, even if at the end of the day it's just like, this was really awesome that happened, like this isn't. And it was a 4-week shoot, and the journal lasted 3 weeks. So like, I do have it, and now like my church is doing the church I go to now is doing a spiritual growth journey thing, and so they gave us all journals, and it's supposed to be anytime, like either during sermons of the church or like in times you're doing devotions during the week or whatever. And I literally, the first day, I was like kind of paying attention, this is bad, I was like kind of paying attention to the sermon, but I was just overwhelming on my heart to like write down a prayer for one of my friends, and I just like wrote that. And so that's, and like I have this journal, but I pretty much only use it like when I'm either at church or going to my small group or but yeah, the biggest thing that I kind of wanted to say at the beginning that I forgot to is it takes time to go through this healing process, and like everybody's timetable is different. And like I said, like it took me 2.5 years before I even told anybody about it. Like, and that was an RD. My family, my sister was the first person I told in my family, and she didn't know until I was already back home visiting. So I was already in LA. So I think it was even after my relationship ended. My sister and I were talking about that, and I told her. So again, this is like 5-6 years after it before she knew, and then she accidentally told my mom. So that's like, I didn't even, and my dad doesn't know all the details, but he literally found out because of this film being made. And so, and like obviously writing that letter to the attacker, helped, but then still struggling, I thought everything was good. Like I had forgiven him, got into this wonderful relationship with this wonderful guy that was going to end in marriage and didn't. And then it's like when that failed, is like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to have a chance again? Like I never thought I'd be loved after it. I found someone, we're clearly not married, and and that's something that I still off and on like struggle with. Like, am I going to find someone that will love me like for me, because in spite of what's happened in my past and in spite of everything? And so, but it does take time. Like there is no timetable like, oh, after this many years after it. And like the anniversary was the 24th, and it's still, that day I still was like off emotionally, and just and I know why, because it was like the anniversary, but just know like there is no like, you need to be all better by this day. It takes time.
I think that's a really key point to say, because yes, freedom can happen immediately through the power of forgiveness and just severing yourself from any of the ties, but the heat, and that's almost the easy part, is forgiving. It's the maintaining it. It's the continually remembering and reminding yourself whose you are, what you have, and what he has done for you. And that continual affirmation or renewing of your mind of, I am a beautiful, fearfully, wonderfully made daughter of the Most High God. I am loved. I am accepted for who I am, just how I am. That's laboring sometimes. Because when we look in the mirror and we've got that sabotaging and negative dialogue, that negative talk going on, and I love this book that I wrote called Sand of Pearls. I talk about these critics, and it's like a bunch of critics like we see in movies who live in our head, and we give them prime real estate for free to say negative things about us and belittle and degrade us, and we have the power to evict them. And so that's hard, because a lot of it is subconsciously. We're not even aware that we're replaying the tape again and again and again. And so to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ is really, really hard. It's a discipline, but it's worth it. And it does take time, like you said. And
I want to point out, I definitely.
What's that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, and like, I don't want people to think like I have it all together, because clearly I don't. Like, I still struggle with mental health issues, partially due to the assault, but partially like other, and like, you don't realize how much, you, like you were saying, like those tapes replay in your head. Mm-hmm. Or for me, I get in any like situation where there's like a new person in my life, whether it be like someone I'm interested in or just a friend, and I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, if they knew like what happened. Because sad to say, like, I had people that I was close with that when they found out about it treated me differently because they weren't sure how to handle someone who had like, that had happened to them. And so, but yeah, I just want to point out, like, I don't have it all together, so please don't, like, I don't want anyone to think like I do.
What's beautiful about it is that none of us have it all together, but together we have it all, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, you and I have developed a great friendship, and just the beautiful times that we've been able to connect on some key turning points for you, whether even the title of this movie, when you had it titled Survivor. Mm-hmm. Was that the full name? I'm trying
it was Survivor, not Victim.
Yeah, Survivor, not Victim. And then I kind of said, you know what, you're not just getting through this, you're not just surviving this, you're triumphantly victorious over this. And then that's where that verse came in, in 1 Corinthians. And it's interesting, wasn't that probably the toughest take that we had, was being able to identify yourself as a victor. And for Tom, who played the pastor in that, to actually ask you the 3 times. And there was something that was really important about the 3 times, because Peter was asked 3 times.
And Peter didn't, yeah.
Do you love me? Do you love me? And it was almost like you were coming to a full awareness of, I think I am, I'm not a victim, I'm a victor. But we had to take that over and over and over just to even, because there was I felt like there was a lot of spiritual attack on that, just not letting that come across as powerfully as we wanted it to.
Yeah. And I will say, like, even going back to the name change, like that part about being a survivor hadn't even really until about a year ago. Like, I kept being like, oh, I'm a victim of sexual assault, or and it wasn't until like talking it over with my counselor, like reliving that whole thing. Like, yes, that did happen to me, but like, she's the one that, had me worked with me to get to that change. Where it's like, no, I'm not a victim of it. Now I describe myself as like, I'm a sexual assault survivor. And like, just so that's why, like, originally we wanted to put the title as that, because it's like, it wasn't a victim. And then, like I said, when you put that victor, I was just like, and I remember texting my friend Melissa, who kind of like reads every script for every project that I get involved in, because she's like not involved in the acting world, so she reads it purely as from like like someone who would enjoy watching it. And when we said victim, not victim, and she texted me that verse, and I was like, I don't know, I just got this verse in my head. And like, going to do that scene with Tom, like, honestly, the first time it was more just, it was like, oh, it was a character, like I was just saying the lines because that's what Bethany says. And like, the first time was easier for me, but then like the more he kept asking, I was like, do I actually believe this, like, as a person? And
you just gave me chills.
It was like, it was harder to do, like, more each time, because like, again, like I said, the first time I was like, oh, I'm just saying lines, like, I'm Bethany, da 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 da, and I was trying to save up all my energy for doing the scene where I actually had to like tell my story, because I knew that was going to be a really hard scene. As comfortable as Jeff and I are with each other, like, that's still going to be, I knew like that. So the first time I was like, I'm just going to say the scene, get it, I'm an actress, I can do this. And then like the second, third time, it's really like, every time he kept asking me, like, even though he was saying Bethany, like, I kept hearing Bethany, like, do you believe this? And it was like, do I? Like, here I'm saying, like, I'm making this film that I'm a victor, and I'm like, do I actually feel that? And so that was probably one of the hardest scenes to do.
Yeah, I think sometimes God just wants to take us by our little cheeks and say, look at me, look at me. Do you believe what I said? Because I'm saying it to you. And if we could actually picture God just grabbing our sweet little faces and saying, dearly beloved, do you believe this? Do you believe that I've already made you a victor in this?
Mhm.
And for us to say that over and over, to renew our minds, because, and that, I guess that would be, another way of helping victims of sexual assault become victors, is by renewing your mind. We have to tear down everything we're saying about ourselves or feeling about ourselves,
Yeah.
or what we feel other people are saying about us. If we do not take that captive like that, we're going to define ourselves by that. We're going to identify ourselves as that. So our job is to continually look in the mirror of God's grace and see ourselves as who he says we are. And I have a prayer, it's a plaque in my bathroom on the counter, and I actually read through that every morning, just because it's my personal affirmations, because I know how many subconsciously stupid things I say during the day. And if I don't line myself up with what God says, then I'm going to be lying about myself and believing it all day long. So yeah, that's another key point, is to be able to start speaking the truth into yourself. And if you have to put scripture or sayings on your mirror, on your in your car, on the refrigerator, wherever you go, just have these positive affirmations and declarations about yourself. Is
My
a great way. Yeah.
going back, for a while, it's not on my mirror anymore, only because I had to like clean it. But my bathroom mirror had things that like I believed it also, but like with people, good things that people would say either like about me, like I am this or I have da da da, and that like used to cover most of my bathroom mirror. Like I could still see, and then I had to get rid of it one day, and like the one where that over and over my counselor and I have gone through, because not only being like sexually assaulted, I've gone through some other pretty crazy stuff in my life, and like my bathroom mirror across the top just says strong now, and it was just like, and half the time like I don't really pay attention to what it says, but like every once in a while I'd come in there and be like, no, like you are strong. And talking about like reminders of being loved, like I wear this ring. I used to wear it on my left hand, but then I kept getting people thinking I was actually married, so had to change that. But like I wear it not as like a purity ring, but more as just like a reminder that like almost like, this is going to sound really weird, but like almost like an engagement ring with Jesus, but just being like, like God still loves you. And that's why like I wear this ring, and it's the ring that became the engagement ring in the film. But like I wear this
beautiful symbol. It's like a covenant ring, because you are in covenant with,
and it's something that when I struggle, like, still struggling with the fact that like, like this has happened and it's something that I've gotten through, but it's still like, it makes me, every relationship I get into, everything, like, it puts all these walls back up. And like this ring I wear like reminds me like, like God, even when you don't feel loved like by anybody, like God still loves you. And that's, and that's why I wear it.
Yeah. And that's what matters the most. There are two other things that I'd like to kind of tap into. One is how you have allowed yourself to open up with other women, and the way that you beautifully shared your story with me. And we've had some pretty candid conversations, and I, for you to be able to share your story with another woman that's older, I'm honored that you do that, but I hopefully am also encouraging you along the way. And because I too have a daughter who was I have two daughters who were sexually violated, and their perpetrator ended up going to prison for 4 years because of what he did. And it radically changed our entire family. And my one daughter ended up going to Teen Challenge because of the devastating effects it had on her. And it happened when she was really little. So when I look at you and we've talked, I see you as my daughter, like what would I say to my daughter if she were right here? And so it's been very encouraging for me to be able to speak that into your life. And I think if women could look for mature, older women And again, like you said, I don't have it all together and I don't have all the answers, but I do have an empathy. I do have a little seasoning and experience and a love that just surpasses anything and everything that you may have gone through. And I can see past that and see your heart and see the value that you are to the Lord and to me and to those around you, and to be able to speak that into you is, I think, one of the best things that you could do for yourself, is to seek out an older person, maybe 10, 15 years your senior, and get real, get vulnerable, share, and then allow them to enter into your life. And for us, it's been really fun because we get to be on set, and
Yeah, we get to make a film out of it.
yeah,
But
yeah. And we've had a lot of changes. We've changed things throughout the whole thing, and
we change things the day of.
yeah, yeah.
That
And it's
happens.
been nothing but for the better. I mean,
Oh, definitely.
yeah, yeah. And then I think the last thing that I would really hope, and I want to ask you, is what kind of opportunities have you had to speak into other women or younger women who have this same traumatic experience?
So it's funny because I actually haven't spoken to that many like other people who have gone through it. So when the whole Me Too campaign like first came out, and everybody on Facebook could either share their stories or just simply put Me Too,
Identify hashtag Me Too.
hashtag, which is all I did because I was like, I'm not ready to share my story. In fact, I'm a little kind of terrified that everybody on the 9th is going to hear my story, but like I know God's got it, and like it'll be great through it. And but I remember one of my friends, we were talking later, and like neither of us had realized the other one had like gone through it. And so we were able to talk. And then even back in college, my RD told me, she's like, there's another girl, I don't know if hers was actually like sexual assault or if it was just she was struggling with something that had happened. And my RD like simply asked me, she's like, I know you're probably not ready to like talk about what happened or your story, but at least like talk to her and offer wisdom. And my biggest thing at that point, and still my biggest piece of advice, is like find a counselor that you trust. It's great. I've had both Christian and non-Christian counselors. It's wonderful to have Christian ones because like you have that basis of faith and they understand more, like you feel like not pure and not almost like ashamed because of sometimes how the church doesn't really talk about things like this. But so I've been able to reach out to them a couple times, or I've reconnected because it's been my 10-year high school reunion. I reconnected via Facebook with a couple friends, and so they're seeing like Victor Not Victim, and so they're like, oh, what's this film about? And I'm like, oh, well, in high school, like when you all knew me, remember how I like kind of changed, my entire personality kind of changed during senior year? Well, there's a reason why. And so I haven't like shared a lot of details with them. Only few people. Well, now, I mean, the film will know most of the details because it's pretty much, we changed some minor things in it, but most people before didn't know like my actual, like what actually happened. They just knew like something had happened.
And people don't have to. I mean,
No,
and
that was like,
you did a movie about it, but when women are talking, when you're sharing, you don't have to go into all the details.
And that's the thing, like even when writing the movie, I was like, I don't want to do like exactly like this is what happened. Like we, obviously like the act of the assault is the same, but like, I changed the person's name and like changed a couple other things. But when you're talking to someone, like even when I told my RD, like way back, the first person I ever told, all I did was tell her like I was assaulted in high school. And that's all I told my sister. I told my sister by who and everything, but it wasn't until, and even like my mom and I, after we filmed Victor Not Victim, she sat down and she's like, so what actually happened? She's like, if you're ready to tell,
Wow.
And I told her, pretty much like I told her, what happens in Victor Not Victim. But like, again, this has been Wednesday was the 11-year anniversary. So it took a long time to be able to even get to this point where I'm able to share my story. And so for me, it's just, I don't, my counselor has asked me, like, if I wouldn't mind, if not talking to like other people, I don't know if it was my counselor here or one back in California that was asking, like, sharing part of your story. Can I have people, like, again, not, give details, but just know that, like, you've gone through this too. And it's really helped knowing one of our family friends, like, the wife is, I think she's 11 years older than me. And she was sharing, like, her story. So then I felt like I was able to share mine with her. Yeah. And just finding people. And, like, again, not everyone's going to make a film about it. That just happens to be the way I could process it. And so just finding, haven't been able to reach out. I'm a lot more comfortable just as a person talking to people that are older than me or like younger kids. I am not comfortable talking to people around my own age. And so that's been kind of hard, but like having my RD reach out to me when she's like, hey, you're a junior this year. We have a freshman that's kind of been, can you talk to her? And honestly, those first couple meetings, I even told the girls, like, I have no clue what I'm doing here. Like, I'm probably not the right person to talk to, but like, just know.
That probably made you even more real to her because she doesn't either. And so she knows that you're not coming with, you're not going to try to fix her, and that in and of itself is when you do share with somebody, the goal isn't for them to fix you. It's for you to be able to have a safe place to share your voice, to be validated, to be valued, and then, ultimately to see yourself as that victor. And so,
and that's what I loved about the film is because, like, with the relationship with, I almost said Jeff, with Seth and Brittany, like, he listens to the story and, like, he doesn't try to fix her. He lets her work through it. And yes, there's moments like working through it causes tension because, I mean, it's a crazy thing. But like, I love that because, they weren't trying to fix her. And like, it was her own time when she was ready to tell the story. And, in moments, and there's moments where even he's not trying to, he's just trying to be there and understand. And like, that's the biggest thing that when I've talked to so many different sexual assault survivors with my friends who have, been or knew someone that was like affected by this, the biggest thing is that you just want someone at the end of the day that like
gets you.
Well, gets it and like will understand as much as they can, because even you don't fully understand it at times or why things are affecting you that way. But that will be there and like love you no matter what. And so
I have to say, Jeff brought out such an incredible spirit of empathy and compassion. And it was just, he captivated me by the way he responded to you as being so mature. And I'm sure that was even part of the healing. I mean, there were moments where you were choked up. I was choked up. It was like, this is such a beautiful, beautiful scene. And the other thing too is that, you may not have a counselor or you may not have a parent that you feel like can understand, but there's got to be, whether it's a grandparent or somebody who is older. But then again, if you have found yourself making poor decisions because of poor thinking, and you need much more intervention than just, sitting down and having a conversation with somebody and sharing your story, there are wonderful organizations and ministries available. Just reach out. I know the YWCA is very much in line with understanding how to minister and come alongside women who have specifically been sexually assaulted.
And I know if you're over on like the east side of Michigan, there's Safe House is one of them.
Safe House and Mercy Multiplied is another.
I'm sure. And like my biggest thing, as you were saying, like if you don't have a counselor, a friend, whatever, they have hotlines. Even reach out to someone there, like call that number.
Yeah.
And like they will listen and be there for you. Even if you don't feel ready to talk to a counselor. Like I wish back when it had happened, like I had reached out to one of those hotlines, because again, they're not going to know me, so there was no sense of like shame. I mean, this person had no clue who I am, you know, and probably would have changed things a bit, but
yeah. And I have such a personal desire to see churches understand that there are 1 in every 4 women sitting in the church who have been sexually assaulted. If there is not someone who has been trained, whether they're a licensed counselor or lay counselor, if they don't have the wherewithal to be able to minister and be there for these people, they're doing their congregation a disservice. So I really want to just encourage churches that watch this to take note, take inventory. What are we doing to minister to the needs of the brokenhearted and wounded spirits that are represented as a result of #MeToo? And if you don't have that, align yourself with Mercy Multiplied or the YWCA, because they do have the resources that and will train people in your church too. So that's got to be a great safe place for anybody to go. If you don't have your church to go to, you know, where else is there? You know, and if you don't have that relationship with your parents, like you know, didn't go to your parents right away. And I
have a great relationship with my parents, and I still wasn't able to talk to them about it.
Yeah. So thank you for being so candid and sharing this. And I'm just so glad that we were able to grab another day here to do this little snippet, because I think you're going to minister to a lot of young girls. I know that they are going to hear you. They're going to see what you are going through and what you have gone through and how you are handling it. And it's going to just change their lives. And so be ready, because God's going to use you in a mighty way to make an impact and to be that.
I started using this film, and it hasn't even come out yet, and I'm already hearing people like were impacted. I mean, getting the funding that we got for it, which we didn't. I mean, we made this film for not a lot of money, but people just hearing my story and being willing to share it. Yeah. Like, we're like, yes, we want to see God, you know, use you, and so. Yeah. And it's just. Yeah.
And that's another way of validating you, by supporting this work so that you can get that message out there, and so it's beautiful. Well, I love you, and this has been an incredible journey for all of us, but a lot of fun too, and made some really good friends with the cast and the crew. And so we're looking forward to hearing from you. If you have been affected by sexual assault of any kind and you need someone to just connect with, we're here. Bethany Hazelitt is on Facebook. Say it again.
Yeah, I was going to say Facebook. So Bethany Hazelitt's my acting page on Facebook. But if you have, you know, been sexually assaulted, please search me under Bethany Kate and send me a message, because I don't always check the acting page on Facebook. So, yeah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that, because I don't think we said that on the earlier.
No, because I wasn't sure I wanted that one out to the public. But, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And again, TrishaHarmon.com/resources, and you can contact me on purchase the material as well. So thank you for staying on board with this extra bonus interview. Thank you, Bethany, for sharing your heart and being so transparent. And we look forward to seeing the movie, and check it out. It's called Victor, Not Victim. And it will be heading to some film festivals. So we look for some opportunities to see come to fruition with all of that. So thanks, sweetie. You're amazing. So you can connect with us on the Victor, Not Victim Facebook page. And if you see this as a great resource that you want to share with your small group, let us know. We'll put you on a waiting list. And as soon as we get the film out and completely done after post-editing, we'll make sure that we get that into your hands. So thanks for joining us. We wish you God's blessings, and have a great day.